Welcome in, everybody. It is Tyler Pilgrim here, Sydney, alongside Tom Bogert, the famous mustachioed deal maker, deal breaker, whatever you want to
The
call him. Tom,
Woj of MLS.
yeah.
Or
Tom,
the
what's going on, man?
Shamsharani of MLS, whoever you.
Yeah, I'm certainly
know.
not making any deals. Breaking them though, for sure. What's going on? You guys looking good? Sydney, the beard's looking righteous, man. It looks beautiful. I'm very jealous.
Appreciate
I can't. I have the mustache, and obviously Tyler, you too. All looks good.
Hey, trying to get a
Appreciate
sponsor
it,
going on here at some point. Something, I don't know. So, Tom, we'll dive right into it because I know you were like incredibly busy. I'm assuming this is your busiest time of the year, right?
Yeah. In terms of just like during the day, just like the more like obviously more and more news and stuff to break, but like the difference between like now and the season is at least like I can break news at night and stuff too, but at least it's not like all right, just was up whatever from the moment I woke up to the evening of like chasing sources and talking to people. Oh no, RSL is playing Houston at 8 p.m. and I feel like I need to watch, right? Like so
Right.
like it's obviously crazy busy, but it feels more manageable in that like, oh no, like there's not 3 games on tonight that I have to watch from 6 until midnight. So there's that. That's just how I'm rationalizing in my head.
Hey, I bet it makes sense. It's good rationalization. I get it.
I do miss the games. I want to be clear that we all do this because we love watching soccer and being pro
Right.
soccer. But I will say the first round of the playoffs broke me. They really did because 1/3 of the league was in the offseason and 2/3 of the league were playing best of 3 round 1 series that took 3 weeks and there was a game every single day and there was all season stuff every single day. That broke me. That absolutely killed me. That was tough.
And now we're ready to do it all over again. All right. So just obviously we're mostly an Atlanta podcast. We've kind of evolved a little bit, I think, into more MLS overall stuff, but obviously with the stuff behind me,
I couldn't tell.
What are your overall thoughts? Because it's been busy for Atlanta this season, but what's been your overall thoughts on the offseason?
Really, really great. It has the potential to be legitimately perfect. Like I don't throw that around lightly, and I don't throw that around just because I'm on a predominantly Atlanta podcast or an Atlanta show. Look, like what they've done, like going into the offseason, my kind of analysis was, yeah, like this is the best spot that this group has been in, like potentially since they won MLS Cup in 2018, because there's just been so many problems since then in terms of obviously Miguel Marone left and, Almada has been the actual replacement for him several years later. There's been the Joseph Martinez injury and then ups and downs, Frank de Boer, different head coaches, all of this. You could look down the roster and be like, Jurgen Damm, that's way too much money, or Emerson Heinemann, or you could just look at the team and be like, oh, Marcelino Moreno is probably a pretty good player, but he makes absolutely no sense next to Barco or PT or then Almada and whatever, right? Like it was just very quickly to be, yeah, there's a lot of talent, but hey, these are all the problems. This team, the cap sheet is really, really healthy right now. The top end talent is there because Thiago Almada is one of the very best players in the league. Yorgos Giacomakis should be a favorite for Golden Boot or among the favorites every year that he's in the league. And those two players complement each other so well. Saba Lobajanice, Jean De Silva, phenomenal complementary pieces to that starting duo in attack. Tristan Miyumba, such an important, great signing in the summer. And then this winter, they go out and bring in Bartosic. I'm probably not even pronouncing the name right still. I think we got a little bit of time to figure that out. I was hoping one of you guys was going to say it before I did, and I could just
you got it. Slish. Close enough.
But he's a ball-winning midfielder, and players like that make the game for the people around them so much easier. He's going to make the game so much easier for Miyumba, who can defend in his own right, but now Miyumba gets to a little bit more freedom. More so, it gives Thiago Almada even more freedom than he already had, which was maximum. Caleb Wiley and Brooks Lennon are phenomenal going forward. Particularly Brooks Lennon, he struggles a bit defending. When you have this double pivot that really defends and covers ground, that lets the wingbacks and fullbacks get forward even more. So it accentuates their strengths rather than in other iterations of this team, the players didn't complement each other like this. They kind of brought out the worst of each other. Like, oh, all the same players want the ball in the same spaces, so it makes it difficult for everybody. Now you have Lobajanice is more vertical. Jean De Silva is more vertical. That gives Thiago Almada a lot more space underneath. Now with Cease shielding the defense, the back line and winning the ball and doing everything he does that he will do. Again, we'll see. Maybe he sucks. I think he's going to be very good, but I guess we don't know until we see it.
Don't say that.
I think Gregerson is going to be a really good signing too. And like the people I've talked to about him, like Orlando wanted him, and they were like, "Damn, like Atlanta got a good player, right?" Like if he's 85% of what Miles Robinson was for this team,
Sure.
They're going to be fine. Like I think Josh Cohen's going to be an upgrade over Brad Guzan if he does indeed start. Like you just look up and down this team, they're deep at every position as well. Like obviously, if Almada or Giacomakis gets injured, then there's going to be a problem. But hey, if Messi gets injured, there's problems for Miami. If Hani Mukhtar gets injured, there's problems for Nashville, right?
Yep.
Like so, it is what it is. This is as good as like you could realistically expect for the first 13 months under Garth Lagerwey, 14 months under Garth Lagerway running the show.
Yeah.
That all can change if and when Thiago Almada leaves, but for right now, they have done absolutely everything perfect.
So, I mean, sounds like you're very high on this winter window for Atlanta United. And, yeah, the three of us, I know Tommy isn't here, but the three of us are kind of, Tommy, Tyler, and I, we're very high on it as well. Just from your vantage point, any holes that still need to be filled for Atlanta or anything that's missing that they need to add? I know Carlos said that there's one player coming, but what's your vantage point? Do they need it or anything that they need to do?
Yeah, I mean, right now, no. And personally, I like obviously they know much better than me of what they see day in and day out as preseason starting. But for me, I wouldn't use whatever at like salary cap or allocation, whatever spots that they still have open, I wouldn't use right now because again, like they might need to focus it all on a center back because maybe Abram isn't the right partner for Gregerson, or an offer comes in for Caleb Wiley and all of a sudden you need a left back, right? Like the biggest hole, and so that's why for me I would probably hold as it is right now because they're pretty much too deep in every position outside of that. Like they have cover everywhere. Like again, Loba Janite can play through the center if and when Thiago Almada can't go. The biggest, I guess, looming hole would be again if and when Thiago Almada leaves, and I'm expecting that to be this calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
If not now, then the summer, and probably more likely the summer. But again, it depends on if and when that offer comes. They're able to bring in a senior DP, which has been the MO of Garth Lagerwey in the past, like Nico Ladero, Raul Ruiz Diaz. You kind of go down the line. That's been the preference. And having a senior DP as a number 10 has a much higher success rate than a young DP, just in terms of a win now type of team. So I'm dead certain that they have their list. They have their options of what they will do when Thiago Almada is sold. So that's the only air quote hole, and it's not a hole yet because he's not gone yet, right? Like so that still has to be the primary focus because if Thiago Almada leaves and the right replacement doesn't come in, the same way that say the Crew won MLS Cup because they were able to sell Lucas Orion and bring in Diego Rossi 48 hours later. If they didn't do that, they don't win an MLS Cup, right? Yeah. Like so, Atlanta has to be ready for that.
It's funny you bring that up because I think the past 3 shows I've brought that same analogy up. I'm like, look, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world if Almada does go in the middle of the season. It happens. Columbus did it and it worked. Hopefully you can recreate that as Atlanta, but we'll see. Speaking of Almada, because I know around the league he kind of gets so much attention, but Atletico Madrid was kind of the most recent one. And then I think you had reported on some other ones that had kind of popped up, but like what's the latest in terms of the Almada saga that you've kind of heard?
Yeah, nothing. And it's been a whole lot of nothing. And like, I just feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again because the stance is again, this is obviously a huge deal, very important, but it's simple in that Atlanta's stance is we're not pushing him out the door. We're not going to keep him against his will either, but like, we can still just make him be the senior DP next year or whatever he ages out of the young DP. And like, that's something that they're genuine about, but it's not like they're going to hold him against his will. If no bid comes in or no bid that's good enough comes in, then he'll stay. But if again, something around the 30 million valuation comes in, then he'll go. Right. Like, and there's only however many teams in the world that could realistically do that and would realistically be a fit for Thiago Almada. So that's kind of just where it is. It's a numbers game. There's not like 100 teams out there that could be making this deal. Atletico Madrid makes sense. I would be a little wary just of how many kind of expensive attacking players have gone there and withered away. Under Diego Simeone, you have to be a specific kind of player. But like if he's excited about it, I could see that happening. And they would have the money if they sell Angel Correa. I haven't looked up the latest on if that deal has happened or not yet. So that's one to look at. But again, like I still assume that it's more likely to happen in the summer just because the market's going to be more robust and more teams are going to know exactly what they need and have more openings. And it'll be a better situation for Thiago Almada himself to walk into where he gets a full preseason with a new team.
But do Atlanta, and we'll move on in a second, but I just want to follow up real quick. Do Atlanta run the risk of alienating Almada if they wait for that quote-unquote perfect number, because the sense is that he's going to be sold for a record number in MLS? It's the risk of them, or is there a risk of them saying, we're just waiting. We're just waiting for that perfect number. And then he just gets impatient and it has an adverse effect on his play on the field. Do you worry about that or?
Yeah, I think that's a fair concern, but Atlanta can say, like, look, we haven't gotten a bid yet. I don't know what to do. We can't accept anything if nothing comes. And like, I think like the stuff with Ajax, it was never like their sporting director talking to Bocanegra or Lago. It never got serious. There was like a couple back channel, like, hey, maybe we could get him for 15 million. And Atlanta, like the message was gotten back to them, just like, yeah. Are you kidding me? Like, you know what I mean? So like that. I don't like, it's not like Almada's a rational enough person. Like, I know that he's ready to go to Europe, but like, he understands that wouldn't be enough like enough money, right? Like, so like, until that there gets like, if they were to reject like that, it would get tricky if, let's say they reject 24, 25 million, something that's like probably below their valuation. And again, this isn't like a sticker price in a store. I don't like the 30 million isn't hard and fast. It's just what I expect based on talking to sources. But if they were to decline like a way, then like you like then we'll see what would happen if like that could really have an impact on Thiago. But like as it is right now, it's not like that they're rejecting bids left, right, and center because there just hasn't been in.
Yeah, that's gonna be one of the main talking points. That's not the main talking point for Atlanta United, at least off the field to an extent. So we talked about incoming players. Let's talk about outgoing players. Actually, before we do that, I actually want to take a look at the league as a whole, just around MLS. So when you look at the transfers that have happened currently and the transfers that are kind of in the pipeline from you talking to your sources, what's really surprised you and which ones are the ones that have just really stood out to you or have been notable in your eyes?
Yeah, a lot of what Colorado Rapids have done. I knew from just talking to sources that like they knew pretty early or like, midway through the season last year, like, oh man, like we don't have it right. Like we need to rebuild. We need to change everything. Obviously they made the difficult decision to part ways with Robin Fraser. They're bringing a new head coach and Chris Armas this winter. I kept on getting the line back to me of just like, we're really good. This is unacceptable. What we were last year, all this. And it's just like, yeah, every team says that. Right. But the fact that the day one of preseason, they had signed Zach Steffen, Omir Fernandez, and a club record deal for Georgi Mihailovic, and they're about to officially sign Sam Vines. That's 4 new starters. 3 of like really high level players, right? Like again, Georgi Mihailovic was a best 11 caliber player when he left MLS. Zach Steffen has had injuries and has his form dipped since he left. But the last time he was here, he was a goalkeeper of the year. Sam Vines, same thing. He was one of the brightest young talents leaving, and now he's coming back at 24 as like somebody on the fringes of the national team. Like they had some of the most work to do just because of how bad that kind of rust, how bad everything was around that team. But they have done so well this offseason, and not just so well this offseason, but the fact that all of that work is done day one of preseason. The only thing they have left is to sign a defensive midfielder. And like, again, maybe they suck again, right? Like who knows? Like maybe the roster just still isn't good enough. But like for me, this looks like a really, really solid team. It looks a whole lot more like their 2021 team than it does their 2023 team, like their first versus their last, right? Like, so again, there's variance here. Maybe Rafael Navarro, who like isn't good enough at center forward, and they need to still find a new center forward, or maybe it takes Georgi Mihailovic a little bit to get up to speed as like a chief chance creator again. But like, I think that all these moves on paper, with the age profiles, with the past performance in MLS, I think that there's a very high floor to what this team is going to be. And the Western Conference is weaker than the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. I think on paper, that was one of the biggest ones that just stands out to me every time I get on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it nowadays. It just stands out. It's huge because, it almost seems like you can see when a team just decides to finally take things seriously. Not that in the past, but they're putting their best foot forward. And it's awesome to see. I still hope, the West isn't as good as the Eastern Conference this year, but
I don't think you have any worries about that. I was doing like honest to God, I think the 8 best teams in the league, 7 of them are in the East, like pretty comfortably.
Yeah,
like that. But who knows? We'll see how it plays out.
Well, speaking of one of the best, last year Cincinnati was big, and an Atlanta fan, Atlanta podcast. People, I think, were curious now about the Miles move. What are your thoughts about Miles Robinson to Cincinnati and kind of how everything played out and how his contract ended up there?
Yeah. My assumption for a while was that he was either going to re-sign in Atlanta for a DP deal, which I felt really strongly about, that Atlanta was not going to offer him, or he was going to go to Europe. So that was kind of my expectation.
Yeah.
And then started to hear like yeah, like his camp wasn't thrilled with like Atlanta put their offer on the table a year ago, and they were like, "This is the most we can offer," and I'm pretty sure it was the max TAM. So like it really was the most that they could offer if they weren't going to give a DP deal. And apparently his camp weren't thrilled that it was, "Hey, this is our offer, take it or leave it." Like, but I don't know. I don't think that it was really done like that by Atlanta. It is what it is. Like sometimes these relationships kind of end. On the positive Cincy side, again, like I think the world of Miles Robinson. I think that the year that he, what was that, 22 when he tore his ACL.
Right.
Going into that season, I had him as defender of the year. I was like, this is the best center back in the league. Him and like Zimmerman. I still think he's in that top 3, top 5, whatever it is. I think that he's honestly going to be a little bit better in Cincy. I think that his profile and his strengths are going to be accentuated just in their playing style more than Atlanta. And again, this is just splitting hairs because I thought he's very good in Atlanta. Like last year wasn't his best year, but it was his first after a long-term injury. He's going to play that like Yerson Mosquera role, and he's just a better version of Yerson Mosquera. Like he's going to just get to kind of hunt and roam and win the ball, and his athleticism and his ability to understand space and positioning is going to be so key. And in that, like he'll have less duties on the ball. He won't be like asked to be building out of the back as much. It'll be more simplistic in terms of on the ball, and his strengths are his athleticism, his IQ defensively, and his ball winning, and all of that is going to be accentuated in Cincy. So part of it too is that he like that's I know that went into it. I know that the play style and the idea of, all right, if I'm leaving Atlanta, like a lot of other teams in the league were interested. He wasn't taking meetings with all the other teams in the league. It was like, all right, if I stay in MLS, it's going to be one of these handful of teams. And since he was obviously top of that list, and you look at just all the players that have come through there that have not like that have developed incredibly. Like Wilfred Nancy and Columbus currently have that crown of like everybody has a career year play for Wilfred Nancy. But look at Cincinnati and all of these players like Vasquez and Lucho Acosta, even like he was a class player, but MVP in the system. The defenders like Nick Hagelin went from like, oh my God, is this an MLS level player to, oh, he's a starting level player in this team. You kind of go on down the line. Like Robinson looks at that and goes, okay, I should get better too if I go there, right? Like, and then that's probably why the deal is a 1+1 rather than a 4-year deal.
And he'll be alongside Miazga, which I don't know. I think to me that was one of the maybe the unsung notes of this whole saga is, I think to your point as well, like if you're going to go somewhere for a short amount of time, because I don't think Europe is closed for him. I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't know.
No.
But yeah, you want to go somewhere where you have another very, very solid defender right next to you. And I mean, he'll be missing the first, 2 games of the season or whatever, but it's a different story. I do think, I know it's all coming back now. I think it's great for him. I do think it's great for Miles. I hope he sucks when he plays Atlanta, but other than that,
what do you think the reaction is going to be from the fans the first time he's back in Atlanta wearing a Cincy jersey?
Oh, they'll cheer for him. 100%. Yeah.
Thought so too, but I didn't know if the fans were upset about how the exit was.
No, I don't know of any player that Atlanta's lost. Even on weird terms that the fans have just kind of been like, no,
right.
Every time
Gressel
comes back, they still chant WrestleMania and clap for him and everything, so.
Well, that one was like Gressel should have been like Atlanta effed that one up for me. Like he should still be in Atlanta, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's a sore subject.
So you put out your power rankings of MLS on your YouTube channel, I believe. So it's sort of the top tier you had Miami in their big 4, which reminds me of another team who had a big X number. Columbus, the defending champions, of course, and Cincinnati, the shield holders. So they're in kind of that top tier that you had. So Almada, and we talked about him a little bit earlier, your expectations of Almada. If there's a chance, and it may be small, but if there's a chance he stays for the entire season, can Atlanta kind of get into that top tier with him and the incoming players?
100%. Again, like going back to what I was saying before, with this 11 looked really, really good. And like, I believe it'd be disingenuous to put any team that isn't, again, like Miami are a special case because they have, again, 4 of the best players in their positions of their generation, or in Messi's case, of all time. But Columbus and Cincy won trophies last year, and they're returning a lot of their core. They have to be those three teams have to be separated. Like it'd be,
Right.
you can't have other teams with questions and other teams that like, oh, this looks good, we'll see what it looks like. Like that's just not fair to like if you want to reward stuff that actually happened on the field. That next tier, Atlanta, like man, if Greg like the reason why they're not in the top tier is because I'm going to list off the ifs, and all of these I think are reasonable that will end up positive. If Almada is here for a long time, or if the senior DB that comes in for Almada hits the ground running. If Gregerson is as good as scouts tell me he is, and same thing with Bartosz, like those are three ifs. They're not outlandish. It's not like if our young player goes from pretty good to elite. It's not if we do this, or like those are realistic things, but it's just that like we haven't seen two of those players in MLS, and we don't know when Thiago Almada is going to leave. So again, like they are absolutely like right on the outskirts of that, and in a couple months, and if we get to the summer and Almada's still here, and maybe it looks like he's staying, like this could be again one of the top tier of apex contenders in the league.
So kind of branching off of that, let's say Almada does go, which is kind of the expectation, and maybe a few of those things that you hit on do happen. Where does Atlanta kind of end up?
Oof. Now that's a little bit more difficult, just because this league, man, right? Like, you never know.
Yes.
But like, so this is a cop out, but I'll answer in that like the team is built, I think, both for regular season success and playoff success. Because playoff success, you need the top end talent and you need to be solid defensively. And again, there's still the ifs there with Gregerson and Cohen and what the defensive unit looks like. But they have plenty to be foundationally strong and solid, and then they have the top end talent to just go win your game when things get kind of congested. It's why, those Red Bulls team has struggled. It's why St. Louis struggled in the playoffs last year. And you kind of go on down the line, it's like these star players really win out in the playoffs. And in the regular season, depth and consistency and players in their prime or rising players is what kind of wins out, and they have that too. So again, there's just lots like there's a lot of variance, right? Like again, some of the ifs that I laid out, maybe they don't turn out right. Maybe Almada goes and the replacement doesn't come immediately, or the replacement doesn't get going immediately, and all of a sudden this team looks pretty average in a really strong Eastern Conference. So there's definitely a lot of variance here, but like they're one of the few teams in the league, probably one of the honestly the 5 or 6 that if you say, hey, if everything goes right, they could be like a favorite to win MLS Cup. Not just they can. It's like they would be a favorite if everything goes right.
Yeah.
So all right, this is a little bit of a hypothetical, but it's kind of overarching for the entire league, because I think you've got the break with Copa America, well, not the break, but you've got Copa America, you've got the Olympics, you have obviously the Leagues Cup, you have obviously all the international breaks. Atlanta is rather international heavy, but how do you see Atlanta kind of coping with that, with the depth that they do have? Because a lot of people, I think, have looked at the depth is pretty solid until you get to like the fullback position, because you have Lennon on the right, you have Wiley on the left, and you have Ronald Hernandez who can kind of play both, and then Aid McFadden kind of hanging out. But do you see other teams looking at this year maybe in a little bit of a different light in terms of depth because of how many different competitions and things are going on for international play?
Yeah, for sure. Because like, again, like that's going to make it difficult for Miami to challenge for the Shield, and like a team like Atlanta too. Like, again, if like that's a lot of time for a lot of players to miss. Again, like obviously we would need to be more specific about when we get there and what the table looks like and everything else. But like these teams that have their key player, like again, Hani Mukhtar isn't going to miss any time at international, dude.
Right.
International. Yeah. I'm not saying that they're a Shield contender, but that would set a team up like that very well. And like you kind of go down the list, like there are teams that are going to slightly benefit kind of on the outskirts of this, and there are teams like Atlanta and Miami off the top of my head, Portland or another one, who are going to struggle with the Copa and the Olympics and everything else that kind of come and when you're playing through them. So yeah, depth is going to be an issue. Fullback, I think that's a good one to look at. Center back as well, but maybe not as much of a concern as long as everybody stays healthy. But yeah, like I'm sure that they're going to use the first half of the season as well with a real strong eye on Atlanta United too, to say, okay, like who might be ready to midseason to be promoted to the first team, because we're going to need more bodies on the bench and picking up some minutes.
Sweet. Well, Tom, I want to be obviously sensitive of your time. I know you're busy. One quick final thing that's totally unrelated to transfers and all that good stuff. I have family in New Jersey, but if we find ourselves up in Jersey, that area, where do we need to go eat?
New York City.
Always New York City.
I'm just kidding.
Get
I'm
the
just
hell out.
kidding.
I want to stay out of New
I'm
York City.
kidding.
I live in Bradley Beach, so I'm
Yeah.
down the shore. Anything, there's a lot of places in Asbury and Bradley. Near and dear to my heart, though, is Darcy's Tavern. I think I'm actually wearing a sweatshirt right now.
Hey,
Nice.
That's in Bradley Beach. It's a
you go.
soccer bar around here. The food is excellent as well, but just the atmosphere combined with the food, the good prices, and the good clientele. You usually see me kind of hanging out at the bar somewhere there. So that's Darcy's Tavern in Bradley Beach, New Jersey. That's 100%.
So I'm ever up there. I may swing by.
Please
Do
do,
we
let
ask
me
for
know.
the do we ask for the Tom Bogert special when we get there? Or
If you say something to a bartender by my name, they'll say, "Do you mean Bogey Senior or Bogey Junior?" Because my dad plays on the Darcy's FC soccer team.
Gotcha.
But I
Gotcha.
promise you that 85% of the bartenders and staff would know who I am. So
Nice.
anybody who goes there, say my name and see what they say.
Yeah.
Hopefully that rings true for me.
Right.
now we know where to go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if you're down in Atlanta for a game, we'll be there. We'll be up in the press box. So let us know.
Cool.
We'll take you out to a similar tavern. And
Awesome. I'm long
and-
overdue. I got to get down.
That works. Yeah,
Nice.
we'll be there. So thanks again, Tom. It's been great. Welcome back anytime, man. We appreciate it.
Cheers, fellas. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Tom. Cheers.